gentlemen, welcome to the 5th annual Harris Highlights Award Show, the only college football award show decided entirely by the fans. Tonight is all about you, the fans, and celebrating the best memories from college football in 2020. Now, without further ado, here is your host for the evening, Blake Harris.
Boo!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 5th annual Harris Highlight Show. What a fantastic introduction. What a fantastic audience. Again, ladies and gentlemen, it is truly an honor to be hosting this show for the 5th consecutive year. Wow, 5 years. 5, that's a big number. That's almost as many frats that turned down Lyle.
God.
Now, it was a great year football-wise. I mean, Alabama won the national championship, a wide receiver won the Heisman, and the best part of all, I didn't have to listen to Josh try to call a football game. Now, speaking of Alabama, Nick Saban now has 7 national championship rings. 7. I mean, that's really unbelievable. Do you guys understand how big of a number 7 is? I mean, it's huge. For example, let's take my 3 co-hosts, Brady, Josh, and Lyle. Now, if between the 3 of them, in their 22 years of existence, add up all the combined number of girls they've kissed, that still doesn't even equal 7. Now, I'm sure you guys are familiar with how big a college football playbook is. I mean, it's insane. That book is filled with pages and pages of plays. It's kind of like that book that Brady has that has all the emails and phone numbers featuring people in the sports media that he stole. Now, I don't know who I trust more. Brady actually coming through on one of his promises of getting us the guests on the show, or Bo Nix leading a game-winning drive down the field. Now, I don't know if you guys heard, but we talked about this on the show last week, but Tate Martell is actually entering the transfer portal yet again. This was a guy who was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school and was one of the top recruits overall in the nation. Now, he was at Ohio State, then he was at Miami, but he's never started a game. But with that being said, he's likely going to have a job before Lyle does.
Was that John Hamm? Hang on. Was that John Hamm?
Hey, John Hamm's in the audience, but there's a lot of people out there, including John Hamm, who think that there's a group of 5 team that deserves to reach the college football playoff, and I'm personally one of them. Cincinnati, they were great this year, and I think they should have gotten more respect than they deserve. But sadly, unless the playoff expands, we're just never going to see a group of 5 team reach the playoff. Their shot at reaching the playoff is so low, but we have a better chance of Josh actually going an entire show without mentioning USC.
So that's unlikely.
Sarah Fuller, now she made history in 2020, becoming the first girl to ever play FBS football. She was a kicker over there at Vanderbilt. Now, it was an incredible moment. I get it. The kickoff wasn't the best, but that's okay, because if I was out there kicking balls, I guarantee that thing wouldn't go more than 10 yards. Now, although it wasn't a good kick and she received a lot of flack, it was still a better highlight than Brady's high school football tape of him riding the bench. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 5th annual Harris Highlights Show. I welcome in my 3 co-hosts for the evening, Josh Schaefer, Lyle Goldstein, Brady Klain. Gentlemen, how are we doing? We excited for a fun night ahead of a lot of awards, a lot of special guests, and a lot of mayhem.
Oh, I am so ready, Blake, to let out my inner men in black, to drink some, we'll call it beverage, and to give away some lovely awards on this great award show that we do every single year. Brady, can you hold that up for a second? I couldn't help but notice that mine was bigger than yours.
Mine's from high school.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh. Interesting. It's like it doesn't matter. Anyway, Lyle, how are you?
I'm great. Is that your red carpet award trophy?
No. Oh, I know that we have one of those. Blake doesn't.
Mine's right there.
Is yours framed?
Mine's framed. That fake award that definitely is not an actual thing.
I gotta tell you,
it is.
It is real. But I gotta tell you, after your monologue where there was a joke about me and then later there was a joke about Josh, I saw the same footage of Russell and then Jared Goff. I don't know if that was like planned or if that was just a happy coincidence.
It wasn't. That was a big time coincidence. But
I was going to say the same thing, Lyle. I noticed that too.
All right, guys. So why don't we get this underway? So it's the 5th annual Harris Highlights Show, the only college football award show out there that is decided entirely by the fans. We put out a survey a week ago, and we had hundreds of thousands of people cast their vote. We have some close races. We have some, that were pretty big blowouts. Our 3 co-hosts, even myself, we don't know the final results until we get to each award. Then we're going to find out who the true champion is. So it's going to be a fun journey for everyone. So guys, why don't we get this show kicked off with the best quarterback of the year? Would any of you guys like to take this one over and begin, or should I kick off this award?
What would you like to do, Blake?
Well, why don't we get this underway? So ladies and gentlemen, the nominees for best quarterback of the year are Mac Jones from Alabama, Kyle Trask from Florida, Trevor Lawrence at Clemson, Zach Wilson at BYU, Dylan Gabriel from UCF, Desmond Ridder at Cincinnati, and Justin Fields from The Ohio State University. And the award for best quarterback for the Harris Highlights Award Show goes to Mac Jones from Alabama, who came in with 54% of the vote. The next closest behind him was actually Zach Wilson, who received 14.1% of the vote. So, guys, no surprise there with Mac Jones. He essentially took home every award, every quarterback award imaginable. So the fans, they're, I guess, 1 for 1 so far in picking the best quarterback, but not as much of a runaway as I would have thought. 52% of the votes. So it's still a pretty close race, only getting half the votes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty wide margin, at least for Mac Jones. It's not super surprising. I mean, he was a Heisman finalist for a reason on what might turn out to be the best offense in the country as voted by fans of the Harris Highlight Show. We don't know that yet, but we will later. That's a tease for awards to come. But I mean, what this guy did this year was outstanding, given that I think a lot of people entered the season not expecting much from him. So I think that just goes to show how good he was this year.
Yeah, I mean, you figured it was going to be him or Trevor Lawrence, although I guess Zach Wilson had a surprisingly high amount of votes. But yeah, Mac Jones finished 3rd in the Heisman. Lawrence came in 2nd. Wilson had a great year. You figured all those guys would be in the mix. But when you're Mac Jones, and again, you have that year and you cap it off with a national championship, I mean, there's not much to argue there.
Yeah, especially with the uncertainty of whether Mac Jones is going to start the entire season, like Josh said, with a guy like Bryce Young sitting in the shadow there. So good to see Mac Jones, win our prestigious award instead of some of the other ones.
Yeah, I know we talked about this in weeks past, where a lot of people didn't even think he was going to win the starting quarterback job. We thought it was going to be Bryce Young. He ends up having like the best season ever for an Alabama quarterback. So Mac Jones, congratulations. Your award is in the mail. It's currently with Josh, or it's currently with Lyle. They're going to send it out, in the coming days, whenever they get a chance to. But guys, let's move on to best running back. And since Brady's next to me on the screen, why don't I throw it to him and have him take over the next category?
Well, as somebody who, like Blake said, did spend a lot of time on the bench in high school, I was able to watch some running backs. And the nominees for our best running backs this year are Javonte Williams from North Carolina, our friend Jarrett Patterson from Buffalo, Najee Harris, Alabama, Sincere McCormick from UTSA, Breece Hall at Iowa State, and Michael Carter also at North Carolina. And if Blake will give me the winner.
I already did. It's in the group chat.
Oh, I thought we were sending it in the StreamYard group chat.
It was just easier on the phone.
It's easier there. And the winner of the best running back for the 2021 5th Annual Harris Highlights Award Show is Najee Harris from Alabama with 1,466 total yards, 26 touchdowns, almost 6 yards per carry, had 43 catches as well and 4 touchdowns there.
Yeah, so getting to the voting on this one, he ran away as Mac Jones did, except he received 62.5% of the vote. Coming in second place was Breece Hall with 18.4% of the vote. So, guys, Najee Harris, another fantastic season. Had it not been for some Alabama teammates, he might have been the Heisman favorite considering, his numbers were insane. I think he led the country in rushing touchdowns, was second in rushing yards, I believe, was a huge impact in the passing game. And what he did those final 3-4 games for Alabama in the SEC title game, the playoff games, he was unreal. So another one well-deserved. 62% of the vote. So far he's got the highest amount for a winner, but I think that might be broken soon. But congrats to a fellow Harris, Najee.
Likely probably a better one.
Yes, probably. More athletic, to say the least.
Probably has his driver's license.
Equally
I have more
athletic.
subscribers. I got more subscribers, though.
How do you know?
And I'm verified on Twitter. I don't know if Najee Harris is verified on Twitter. So
he might still have more followers than you, though.
Well...
There's only one way to find out, and that's to pause the award show and go look.
He's verified.
While we do that, we got our man Connor that actually came in with a very generous donation saying, Blake, take this money as a bribe to never do that opening again. Well, can't make any promises. The opening monologue is everyone's least favorite part, but it must be done. What's an award show without an opening monologue where he roasted everyone? I was watching Steve Harvey's NFL Awards one, which is why I got most of the clips. Steve Harvey was gold when I think it was 2018 when he hosted the NFL Awards. That was fantastic.
Peyton's is my favorite. I think Peyton killed his at the ESPYs.
I was gonna say, well, yeah, the ESPYs, Peyton Manning was by far the best. He was absolutely fantastic. So, best running back, Najee Harris, 2 for 2 at Alabama so far, guys. I have a feeling. I mean, who knows? This is up to college football fans. This is up to the voters. But hey. We'll leave it at that. Lyle, I'll let you take over the next one.
Okay, for best wide receiver, like we said, should be interesting. Our nominees are Marlon Williams from UCF, De'Ami Brown from North Carolina, Jalen Darden from North Texas, Amon-Ra St. Brown from USC, Elijah Moore from Ole Miss, Ty Freifogel from Indiana, Jonathan Adams Jr. from Arkansas State, Kadarius Toney from Florida, and Devontae Smith from Alabama. And the winner for the Harris Highlights Award Show Best Receiver goes to, Blake's keeping me in suspense. You know who it is, he says. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and say Alabama wide receiver, Ty Freifogel. Yeah, no. Alabama wide receiver Devontae Smith getting how many percent of the votes?
All right, guys. I want you all to take a guess as to what percent of the vote he received, and I'll let you know who's the closest.
I'm going to go with like 86.
I'm going to say 91.
I'm going to go 94.
I think Lyle was technically the closest, 89.6% of the vote. So 1 out of 10 people out there didn't think that he was the best wide receiver in the country. Coming in at number 2 was Elijah Moore with a nice whopping, it doesn't even have the percentage because it's so small on here. Hey, I see Josh voted 15 times for Amon-Ra St. Brown during this because he got 15.
Just once.
Votes.
Just once.
All right, guys. So this one we don't have to spend much time on. Devontae Smith, historic season, won the Heisman Trophy. Are we shocked that he only got 89.6% of the vote?
I'm not shocked that he only got that much. I think it makes a lot of sense why he got that much. But even if you take Devontae Smith out of the nominees, I actually think that it's a tough award to give out.
Then it'd be a fun one if we took
if you took Devontae Smith out. I think this might be the closest, or at least most spread out of all the awards that we had. I mean,
actually, I apologize. I was wrong on the count. Elijah Moore wasn't in second place. It was actually Ty Freifogel, who came in second place, receiving 2 more votes than Elijah Moore did. So,
wow.
hey,
Yeah,
the number 2 receiver goes to Ty. That's what we should have named the award, the non-Devontae Smith wide receiver.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I mean, my guess would have been it would have gone to Elijah Moore if you had to give it to somebody else. But yeah, I'm sure it would have been all pretty close.
What's impressive about Freifogel finishing second, and the same thing goes for some other guys on the list, but he didn't really play a full season like some of these other guys did. So that's why I think this would have been such a hard award to give out if Devontae Smith wasn't on the list.
I just want to say, so Devontae Smith won by a couple thousand votes, but then you have Freifogel, who came in second place. Elijah Moore had 2 fewer votes than him. Kadarius Toney had 5 fewer votes than him. Jalen Darden had 1 fewer vote than him. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 5 fewer. Diami Brown had 2 fewer. And Jonathan Adams Jr. had 1 fewer. So, yeah, I mean, had this been for the second best wide receiver in college football, this could have been a fun one, which we maybe should have done to give other people a chance because it wasn't fair. But Devontae Smith, Alabama, a clean sweep so far, 3 for 3. Unfortunately, I think it's going to come to an end now with the best tight end, but hey, I mean, stranger things have happened. So, Josh, why don't you take over for best tight end in college football?
I will do that, Blake. First of all, 5th year being here. It's just an honor to be invited back every year to do this with you guys. So I will raise a glass to everyone who's in the other 3 boxes here.
I finished my Jack Daniels.
Okay, well, you're going to have to get some more before we get to the next question. So the best tight end, the nominees are Kyle Pitts from Florida, Brevin Jordan from Miami, Hunter Long from Boston College, Cole Turner from Nevada, Charlie Kolar from Iowa State, and Sean Dykes from Memphis. And the winner of the best tight end award.
It's on StreamYard, Josh.
Oh, so I didn't realize he had totally changed it. I had closed out the window. The winner is Kyle Pitts from Florida. Wow. Finished the season with 43 catches, 770 yards, and 12 touchdowns. The guy is basically just a big wide receiver.
Now, guys, this is another one that we could have done. The Kyle Pitts Award, who was the second best tight end. You guys want to take a guess as to what percent of the votes Kyle Pitts got for this one?
Go 85.
81.
I'm going to go higher than Devontae. I'm going to go with like 92.
You were close, 90.2. He took in 90.2% of the votes, so more than Devontae. So Kyle Pitts, he's got the leaderboard right now. Coming in second place was Charlie Kolar from Iowa State. Third place was Hunter Long. Fourth place was Cole Turner. So, it is what it is. There it is. We could have had second place for this, but yeah. Kyle Pitts, best tight end. He's a wide receiver. The dude was a stud. He played in 5 or 6 games and was number 1 amongst all tight ends. So had he played a full season, his numbers would have been insane. He was the first tight end to ever finish top 10 in Heisman voting. This dude's going to be a stud in the NFL, I think, wherever he goes. And he was just a special year for him.
Just imagine if he wasn't hurt for that LSU game.
Yeah,
who knows what would have happened.
It really is a shame. It really is a shame he was hurt for that LSU game. All right, guys, so we're moving on now to our next category, best defensive end. We got a lot right here. So best defensive end, the nominees are Taron Jackson from Coastal Carolina, Chris Rump II from Duke, Rashad Weaver from Pitt, Jalen Phillips, Miami, Kayvon Thibodeau, Oregon, Will McDonald, Iowa State, Patrick Johnson, Tulane, and Wyatt Hubert, Kansas State. All right, guys. Now this one, things got interesting. The winner received 34% of the votes. So just about a third of the vote went to the winner. And your choice for the Harris Highlight Award for Best Defensive End goes to Taron Jackson from Coastal Carolina. Finished the season with 54 tackles, 14 tackles for loss, 8.5 sacks, and 4 forced fumbles. Knowing me, it's probably pronounced Teron Jackson. So Teron Jackson, whatever it is, congratulations, you get the win. But it was a close one, guys. 34.3% of the vote. Coming in second place was Jalen Phillips with 19.8% of the votes. Then Kayvon Thibodeau with 17% of the votes. So, a sizable gap, 15% or so, but it was still somewhat pretty close.
Yeah, I think this and I think some of the defensive awards, specifically on the defensive line, scrolling through, I thought that we had a lot of really good nominees for these ones, and I thought that these ones would be pretty close. So it's not super surprising, but a guy like Teron Jackson, I mean, his stats, they spoke for himself this year. And then he was also on one of the most surprising teams nominees that we have later. So I think that really helped him stand out.
Yeah, it's kind of easy to get lost in the fold with so many guys like Kayvon Thibodeau or others. But yeah, for a guy like Jackson, who obviously Coastal Carolina was really good this year, but they weren't at an Alabama Clemson type level. But it's cool to see a guy like that get some recognition from the fans.
Yeah, I love saying that and love what Coastal Carolina did this year. We talked about them pretty much every week, and we were just sort of shocked week after week. And so it's good to see Teron Jackson getting some love and recognition here.
All right, guys, moving on now to best defensive tackle.
Was this mine? Yeah.
It is if you want.
It is. We'll just go in order then. All right, so for best defensive tackle, funny enough, ties back to the position that I was when I sat on the bench. The nominees are Patrick Jones from Pitt, Cade Hall, San Jose State, Christian Barmore from Alabama, Davion Nixon from Iowa, Darius Stills, West Virginia, Amari Barno from Virginia Tech, and Haskell Garrett from Ohio State, and Brewer from Coastal Carolina. The winner of Best Defensive Tackle for this year's Harris Highlights Award show is Christian Barmore from Alabama. We get back on the Alabama train here, so, really not surprising. 37 tackles, 9.5 TFLs, 8 sacks, 3 pass deflections, and 3 forced fumbles. One of the most evenly spread stats across all of college football you saw there with Christian Barmore.
Yeah, he comes in 35.6% of the vote. And then after that, this might actually be, aside from him, the most evenly balanced, results following that. So CJ Brewer from Coastal Carolina, he comes in second place with 15.2% of the vote. I'm not going to name out who got who or who got what in regards to voting, but this is how the voting turned out for the rest. 15.2%, 8.3%, 9%, 6.7%, 9.9%, 11.8%. So the rest of the nominees, they were all right there receiving their own amount of votes. But yeah, another deserving award, another reason why Alabama was the best team this past year, another reason why they won the Natty. They're just stacked everywhere you look.
Yeah, and when we first saw this, I really thought that it was going to be between Barmore and Brewer, which up to this point, you could have had at least up to this point so far, an offensive sweep for Alabama. And then at least on the defensive line, I thought that it might be a sweep for Coastal Carolina. But for a guy like Christian Barmore, this is somebody that I think got a lot of attention once the playoffs started, because Alabama's on national television every single week, especially this year. But I think that he can sometimes get lost when Alabama's blowing people out. But then once the playoffs started and he just took his game to another level at that point, I think that is what pretty much locked this award up for him.
Yeah, and we're seeing why Alabama went undefeated, won a national title, and some people want to put them up in the ranks of possibly the greatest team ever. Is now we're kind of going one by one individually. We figured the 3 offensive guys would get their recognition. I think we're going to see a couple of these defensive guys get their recognition too, and Barmore very deservingly so.
All right, guys, moving on now to best linebacker.
Okay, so for best linebacker, we have 6 nominees. They are Justin Rice from Arkansas State, Zaven Collins from Tulsa, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from Notre Dame, Joseph Osai from Texas, Chaz Surratt from North Carolina, and Zacoby McClain from Auburn. And the winner for best linebacker goes to Zaven Collins from Tulsa, who finished the year with 54 tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, 4 interceptions, 2 pass deflections, and 2 forced fumbles. The guy does it all.
Yeah, he won the Nagurski Award, and this guy was an absolute beast. This is the closest we've had so far, guys. He had 33.2% of the vote, and then Jeremiah Wusu, he had 27.8% of the vote. So, just over a 5% gap. No one really close after that. So this was essentially a 2-man race. But Zayvon Collins from Tulsa, insane story. He had no, FBS offers whatsoever except for Tulsa. Went to Tulsa, was an absolute beast. Is probably going to be a first-round pick. But now, most importantly, he's a Harris Highlights Award Show recipient.
And that's really all that matters, if we're being quite honest.
It really is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah, the guy, like you said, the guy does everything. He's a new style type linebacker. He doesn't just kind of sit in the middle of the field. He can cover. He makes tackles. He had a couple picks. And like you said, for a pretty cool story like his, now he comes out with the Harris Highlights Award.
For the amount of praise that Isaiah Simmons got last year for being in a similar position that Zayvon Collins is, you really don't hear anything about Zayvon Collins, who is, I think, one of the best linebacker prospects in this whole draft. And like Blake said, he's going to be a first-round talent for sure.
Yeah, I think he had 2 game-winning plays this year. I know he had a game-winning, pick 6, in overtime. I think he had a game-winning sack. He might have had another game-winning interception at some point. So this guy's an absolute stud. It was a close race. You could have gone either way, but Zayvon Collins, he comes out on top. Guys, our final, player award for this whole section, we got Best Defensive Back. It's fitting how it, we rotated around. Each got two picks for this one.
Yeah, how about that? So as we
funny how math works, right?
Yeah. As we step back in and we get the Best Defensive Back award, the nominees are Trevon Moehrig from TCU, Derek Canteen from Georgia Southern, Shamar Jean-Charles from App State, Richie Grant from UCF, Brandon Joseph from Northwestern, Patrick Surtain from Alabama, and Talanoa Hufanga from USC. And the winner of the Best Defensive Back Harris Highlights Award goes to Patrick Surtain from Alabama. 37 tackles, 9 pass breakups, and an interception this year to kind of anchor down that Crimson Tide defense.
Yeah, 42.8% of the vote, so he nearly got half the vote, ran away with this one kind of. Coming in second place, the closest behind him was 16.7% of the vote. Do you guys want to guess who came in second place in regards to the voting for this one?
It's got to be Hufanga.
I was going to guess Brandon Joseph.
I think it's between either Joseph or Hufanga. I would guess Hufanga.
Brandon Joseph, he got 16.7% of the vote. Hufanga came in third place. He got 12.6% of the votes. So, Josh, unfortunately, your 8,952 votes for Hufanga, they just weren't enough.
Yeah, that's tough. I really spent all day just voting for those. Yeah, no, I didn't think Talanoa Hufanga was going to win. I think genuinely, I think he probably should have. But if he was going to lose to somebody, I would guess that it would be Patrick Surtain. And
full season, Hufanga's the winner for sure.
Full season, I think Hufanga deserves to be the winner, and I don't think it's close. But I just think he's more versatile than anybody else on. He's basically a linebacker who plays safety. But Surtain, the good part about him winning is I think it shows from at least the fans' perspective and the people who vote is that his stats don't tell the whole story. And if you look at his stats, pretty much everybody else on here has, at least at face value, better statistics than Patrick Surtain. That does not tell the whole story. I mean, this guy is probably, I think he might have the highest NFL potential out of potentially any defensive back in college football.
And the big number that sticks out to me there, Josh, like you said, is the tackles. 37. Hufanga had, 62. That's because no one throws the ball his way.
Yeah.
You can't throw the ball. A lot of those tackles were on run plays or crossing routes. So for a guy like Surtain to be one of the top guys with having this limited number of tackles, no one throws his way.
Yeah, and they also had a much more balanced defense too.
They did. I also think it was the highest rated QBR defensive back of the season.
Yeah, Hufanga had to be that guy. And along with other players on this list, like Richie Grant at UCF, he had to be that guy on that defense. Surtain didn't have to be that guy and still was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, overall, you can't go wrong here, but with some tough competition. All right, guys. So we're going to move on to fail of the year. This was I think the only award on this list that you couldn't vote for the fans because it was too tough to know what the play was, know what was going on. So for this one, our man Connor that suggested this, weeks and weeks ago, he has a little clip for us. We're going to see the play. So guys, I'm going to risk copyright here. I'm doing it for you guys. I'm doing it for the fans. I'm risking copyright. We're going to see the fails in front of our eyes, and we're all going to pick what our personal pick is for fail of the year. So you guys can also let us know in the comments down below what your pick for fail of the year is.
Just give each video courtesy, like, hey, this is from ESPN.
Okay, then that'll do it.
Then you're good to go.
YouTube's going to care. All right, guys. Fail of the year.
Hey guys, my name is Connor Doherty. I'm from Maryland. I'm a lifelong Navy and Virginia Tech fan, and I'm honored to present the award for Fail of the Season. The nominees are as follows. Number 1, Brock Purdy's pick 6 fumbleception versus TCU.
Whoa, what is he doing?
Number 2, Justin Fuente calls a timeout right before Virginia Tech blocks a field goal and returns it for a game-winning touchdown. The Hokies lose to Liberty on a second field goal attempt 2 plays later. Number 3, Army attempts its own version of the Music City Miracle versus Tulane, and Tulane picks off the lateral attempt for a touchdown. Number 4, Citadel's punter pulls a whoa, he has trouble with the snap versus UCF, who scores a touchdown. And number 5, a website called Daily Dropout lists Vanderbilt's Sarah Fuller as the biggest failure in college football history, and says that she should be lucky there was no run back on her historic kickoff, or else she would have been run over. Thanks guys for letting me present this award, and keep up the great work.
There you go. So I know a lot of people in the comments, they're saying, where's Marco Wilson throwing the shoe? I mean, technically it's a fail, but it wasn't necessarily really like a play. It was just something that he did like during the game that cost them big time. These were all just idiotic plays like during an actual game. So for those of you that want to know why Marco Wilson wasn't on the list, that's why, because it technically wasn't a play. So there you guys go. Guys, go around the table. Pick which one you guys have for fail of the year.
Did Jason Whitlock contribute to that Sarah Fuller article? Because it sounds like he and Clay Travis probably did that together.
I was gonna say a little mix of Clay Travis in there too. I'd go with either the Sarah Fuller one or Brock Purdy.
Yeah, I was thinking kind of the same thing. I remember watching the Brock Purdy one live, and at the same time Joe Davis said it, I jumped up and yelled, "What is he doing?" And then he threw that pick, and that I just see, that's the thing, is I think some of these other plays on here are like, oh, like that's just a mistake, and then it just unraveled from there.
Like the timeout and all that,
and the timeout, the Music City Miracle that just gets picked off, the punt in the end zone, like all those different things. The Brock Purdy one, I have watched 100 times, and to this day, I don't know what he was thinking. Like, it's not like he made a bad play. It's like, what were you thinking, bro?
Yeah, I got to go with Purdy too, Josh. I was watching that one live, and we were all texting, and we're like, wow, Joe Davis is really good.
Yeah.
But, like, not the way we want him to be really good. Like, that was just a disappointing moment in the game. And when I think of the biggest fail of the year, I think of that one for sure. That's the first one that comes to my mind.
Just because of the play call. Like, the call is what makes it. That's what makes it for me. What is he doing? Like, yeah, I don't even think Brock Purdy knows what he's doing. So those are all of our picks. Connor, thanks for the idea. Thanks for the suggestion. All right, guys, let's move on now to the most surprising team. So I guess I'll take this one. I'll take this one over right now, guys. But most surprising team, the nominees are Indiana, who finished the season 6-2, Coastal Carolina, who finished the season 11-1, BYU, who also finished the season 11-1, Liberty finished the season 10-1, Northwestern, they're in the Big Ten title game, they finished 7-2, Louisiana, they finished 10-1, Texas A&M, they almost reached the college football playoff, they come in at 9-1, Cincinnati, they almost reached the college football playoff as well, they finished at 9-1, Ball State, they shocked everyone, they finished 7-1. Same with San Jose State. They finished 7-1 as well. Guys, I'll be honest, I was expecting this one to be one of the closest categories in general because all these teams were surprising. I mean, you can make the case for every team on this list to be a winner because I don't think maybe people thought Texas A&M would be a top 4 team. I personally didn't. But all these other teams, I don't think anyone expected them to finish where they were. This one wasn't even close. The one that won finished with 60% of the vote, with the next closest coming in with 9.6%. So this is a 50% win. And guys, people all agreed the winner for the most surprising team of 2020 and taking home this beautiful Harris Highlights Show award is Coastal Carolina, the Chanticleers. They finished with 60% of the vote. Coming in second place at 9.6% of the vote is BYU. Yeah.
I think that's surprising.
Yeah.
I'm a little surprised by that one.
They're deserving. Like, I mean, everyone on this list was deserving. Coastal Carolina, they're deserving of winning. But again, I mean, a 50% win, that was shocking. But again, this is why this is the best college football award show out there, because this is based on what the fans think. And it looks like majority of fans think Coastal Carolina, they are the most surprising team of 2020.
Well, majority of fans thought wrong.
No,
I
Brady, would
think,
you like to explain why?
No, I'm not even going to bother.
Well,
I think if the Big Ten didn't bend its rules to get Ohio State into the conference title game, I think that either Northwestern or Indiana could have won this, like legitimately could have won. And it would be because one of those two teams would have won the Big Ten. But I think that putting Ohio State in there kind of eliminated maybe both these teams. But Coastal was picked what, to finish last or second to last in that conference, and finished 11-1, and that one loss was the bowl game.
I will say this about the award. I am disappointed, but I am not surprised.
Hey, Brady, 6.1% of college football fans, they know what they're talking about.
I'll take it. But I honestly, I voted twice for this award. I just voted twice because we're hosting it. We can't vote and skew the awards. I voted once for Coastal and once for IU. So I really do think that Coastal was the biggest shock because they didn't have a full slate of games. IU only had half their originally slated schedule to play, with a game or two canceled. So yes, I thought what IU did this year was great. But I think what Coastal Carolina did this year is instrumental for them moving forward.
All right, guys, that's the most surprising team. Now it's time for the most disappointing team. Now, unfortunately, Brady, I can't throw it to you because for the most disappointing team, we actually have a surprise guest to let us know who the most disappointing team of 2020 was.
I'm Jordan Kane from Pocatello, Idaho. My favorite team is the Seattle U Redhawks, and I'm presenting a category familiar to all four of you. It's this year's most disappointing team. And I know this is familiar because there's not four guys on the earth who understand disappointment like you guys do. We've got Blake and his disappointment in the California State driving test. It's a tough one, and he is continuously disappointed. We've got Josh and his disappointment in Arizona State's graduation request because it took a little longer than expected. We've got BK, his disappointment in women, love, pick one above. And then we've got Lyle. We could go on 15 different tangents here, but we'll keep it to the one with the poster on his wall. His disappointment in the worst baseball team on earth, the Seattle Mariners. I should know, I live real close when I went to Seattle U. It was a bad team. And your nominees are, for the most disappointing college football team, are.
Well, take it away, Brady. Take it away with the nominees.
He didn't read the nominees, which is even more ridiculous.
That's Jordan Kane. He's called into the show 100 times.
Yeah, big Seattle U fan.
Big Seattle U guy.
Yeah, him and Steven.
Yeah, Steve, and also
he was Eastern Washington.
Yeah, he also helped me out in one of our quizzes before. He was my lifeline. Jordan Kane from Pocatello, Idaho. Go SU. Idaho. I don't know. It sounds like something Jordan Kane would be into.
Well, the most disappointing teams for this year are LSU at 5-5, Michigan again at 2-4, Penn State at 4-5, Arizona at 0-5, Mississippi State 4-7, Oregon at 4-3, and Tennessee at 3-7. And the winner, or should we say loser, of most disappointing team for 2020 is the, until a few weeks ago, reigning national champion LSU Tigers.
This one, yeah, LSU, kind of a close one. LSU comes in with 34% of the vote. Penn State right behind him in second place with 24.6% of the vote. Michigan then with 23.4%. And then the rest, nothing really there. But yeah, LSU guys, I know we didn't expect them to be competing for another national championship, all the talent they lost, but they looked bad this year. I don't even know how they were 5-5. It seemed like every game I was watching, they were somehow losing. They somehow finished 500. But I think the reason why they won this award is because, again, they were the national champions, 2 years ago. They come back this year, finish 500. Personally, I would say, like a Penn State or a Michigan was maybe more disappointing. But hey, this is the fan vote.
What was the percentage of it? What was the percentage?
LSU got 34% of the vote, and then in second place was Penn State with 24.6. Third place was Michigan with 23.4.
I just can't get over my disappointment in my own life, I guess. Is the one thing I'm stuck on.
I can't believe that didn't win.
Everyone else got sports, and I get, life disappointment.
No, I got graduating.
Okay, true.
I think the reason why LSU wins this most disappointing award, I think you're right, Blake. I think everybody else on here was just flat out disappointing, maybe more disappointing. But remember, there was a time this season when we thought Mississippi State beating LSU was the sign of, one, things to come for Mississippi State,
right,
and two, that was going to be the Harris Highlights Award for biggest upset. And then LSU turned out to be a really poor football team. And remember, this is a team that was a shoe throw away from losing 6 games.
Literally a shoe throw away.
Literally a shoe throw away from losing 6 games this year. So I think that's why LSU wins. Plus, I think it's just, dude, that's like making the playoffs as the number 1 seed and getting swept in the first round. It's like winning the national championship and then being disappointing like they were. Like, that's just, they went from being arguably the greatest team of all time to going 5-5, almost 4-6.
Yeah, and they turned it around toward the end of the year. They had the statement win over Florida, but it's the way they started. The fact that, again, like they come out, yeah, they lost a ton. Like, that shouldn't be overstated. But the fact that they come out and they lose to a Mississippi State team who was very evidently not any good, and then it's just the way their season spiraled at the beginning of the year. It's like, how do you go from like eternal glory to this? Like, it was just the way they sputtered out of control, I think.
I remember saying, I think it was episode 1 or maybe our preseason predictions for each conference, whatever it was, but during the SEC when I said, listen, guys, LSU is going to disappoint this year. It doesn't matter. The only reasonable doubt that they wouldn't disappoint is if they win the championship again, which just wasn't going to happen. So for LSU fans and for across the country, being one of the greatest teams in all of college football that we've seen, say, the last 20 years, because it's tough to compare decades, but what we saw from LSU last year was historic, and this year was a normal college football season. In retrospect, for a normal middle of the pack team, last year was special. This year was normal, which was in then turn disappointing.
Right. So a lot of people are saying, Penn State should have won or lost. Michigan. Well, that's why you got to spend all day voting. If you want to make sure one of these teams wins, you got to put in thousands of votes like Josh did. But unfortunately, Josh was outvoted. His 15,000 votes for Amon-Ra, they weren't enough. And you just got to keep voting. All right, guys, moving on now. We got what we got here. Biggest upset of the year. But we have another surprise guest to let us know the biggest upset of the year.
Hey guys, college buddy here, Sebastian Emmanuel. Didn't forget about you guys. I love the show. But originally from Boise, Idaho, now living in St. Simon's Island. Guys, it just means more down here. But just letting you know, still always going to rock Boise State Broncos, baby. And the nominees for the biggest upset of the college football year are...
And then I think it's Lyle who is going to be reading the nominees.
So
nobody's reading the nominees. That's what we're doing. It was too much work to memorize all those nominees.
Okay, so biggest upset nominees are LSU over Florida, Kansas State over Oklahoma, Florida State over North Carolina, Michigan State over Northwestern, Rice over Marshall, or Louisiana over Iowa State. And the winner for biggest upset of the year goes to the shoe game, LSU over Florida.
This one was a pretty big runaway, 52.8% of the vote. The next closest was Kansas State over Oklahoma. Then everything after that, nothing really close. So wide margin, more than half the people. Everyone in the comments is agreeing LSU over Florida. Guys, I think Lyle said it earlier. Kyle Pitts, man, his injury that game, it really hurt the Gators. And of course, a shoe toss. And, of course, like a 58-yarder into the fog on the road. So
yeah, but Dan Mullen said he could see everything through the fog except for the shoe throw. So
yeah,
I don't think the shoe throw actually happened. It's an urban legend.
It was CGI. It was computer generated.
Exactly. And he also blamed the NCAA and college football for making fake rules for the season when you lost at home as 23-point favorites.
The biggest upset was simply that they played too many games. That's what the upset was.
He also said, they didn't have enough players on scholarship, but they decided to play anyways.
Which I think breaks protocol, doesn't it? It did in the Pac-12. That's why half the games were canceled.
Let's see. Pac-12 or SEC? Which one just means more?
Well, according to Seb, who lives in Saint Sebastian Emmanuel's Island in Georgia, it just means more.
Guys, I just want to briefly mention some of these other upsets really quickly because some of these are just, inexcusable. Kansas State, for whatever reason, they just have Oklahoma's number. I don't know how. Michigan State beat Northwestern. Now, this was, I think, after Northwestern moved up to like number 7 in the rankings, and then they somehow lost to Rocky Lombardi and Michigan State. Rice over Marshall. I believe entering this game, I think Marshall was undefeated. Rice hadn't won a game. Marshall was favored by about 25 points. And I don't think Marshall scored a single point in that game. So there was also that one. Florida State somehow beat North Carolina, but I think that was the game where there was like 3 interceptions from North Carolina. They got like tipped, or like wide receivers just dropped the ball.
They dropped 4 passes. The last 4 plays of the game were all dropped passes by wide open receivers.
And then at the beginning of the year, this one seemed like an upset, but in reality, it wasn't really an upset, but we had to put it on there anyway because at the time it was fantastic. Louisiana, I mean, it's still a group of 5 team taking down a Power 5 team in Iowa State, while Iowa State was at home. But overall, yeah, Florida, I mean, I am kind of upset, even though Florida was competitive against Alabama in the SEC title game, which I was shocked that it was, I think, only a 6-point game. Had Florida beaten LSU, Florida would have been playing for a playoff spot. Who knows how that game would have turned out differently had Florida been a little more motivated, but unfortunately, no. But how do you lose to LSU? My goodness.
This is at the time of the season when LSU was actually playing more competitive football. So it's not just the fact that like it's an upset. It's the magnitude of Florida's loss that I think like solidifies this game.
And the fact that we get LSU being the most disappointing team, but also the one team with the best upset is really kind of I'd say kind of funny.
Yeah.
You get a team that was disappointing, but also, hey, they got a pretty good win.
Right. All right, guys, time to move on now to best single game performance of 2020.
Am I actually introducing this one or?
Yes, you are.
Okay. All right. Best single game performance of 2020. The nominees are Devontae Smith versus Ohio State, 12 catches, 215 yards, and 3 touchdowns in 2 quarters of the national championship game before he left with an injury. Mac Jones versus Ohio State in the national championship game. He threw for 464 yards and 5 touchdowns, a statement for Alabama. Cameron Peoples versus North Texas had a 317 yards, averaging 14 yards per carry and 5 touchdowns against the Mean Green, who weren't too mean that day. Trey Sermon from Ohio State against Northwestern in the Big Ten title game ran for 331 yards, had 11.4 yards per carry, and just 2 touchdowns, which surprised he didn't have more. Corey Rucker versus Louisiana Monroe had 9 catches for 310 yards and 4 touchdowns. KJ Costello in what was the biggest upset of all time against LSU, 623 yards, set an SEC record with 5 touchdowns, and then proceeded to not be very good the rest of the year. And then our friend of the show, Jared Patterson from Buffalo against Kent State, 409 rushing yards, averaged over 11 yards per carry, and had an NCAA rushing touchdown record for a single game with 8 touchdowns. our guy JP. And the winner of the Harris Highlights Award for Best Single Game Performance is friend of the program, Jared Patterson from Buffalo, in his NCAA rushing record-setting game for Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, Jared Patterson, first off, he has 43.5% of the vote. Coming in second was Devontae Smith's performance. Jared Patterson, he was, second all-time in rushing yards with, I believe, 409. Could have set the record, but his coach opted to keep him out of a final drive. 8 rushing touchdowns, I believe, tied for the most ever in a game. So essentially the greatest rushing game of all time. So there you go. What a performance. But overall, a lot of good performances. I know a lot of people in here were saying, where was the Justin Fields game versus Clemson? For this one, we wanted to keep it to 2, or I think 3 for each, position, 2 or 3 for wide receiver, 2 or 3 for running back, 2 or 3 for quarterback. I thought Mac Jones and his performance in the national championship was better. Setting an SEC record in passing yards, regardless of who you're doing with, that's an incredible feat for itself. So Justin Fields, a great, outing against Clemson, but overall, just so many good performances. But yeah, Jared Patterson, this was the deserving one. I know a lot of people are also saying other people deserve to win, but again, second most rushing yards all time, tied for the most rushing touchdowns of all time, and he could have had more for both. Because
remember, his coach took him off the field on first and goal, and he needed 5 yards and a touchdown.
I think he needed 20 yards.
And Kevin Marks got it on that final drive.
He got a 24-yard touchdown on that play. Yeah. I want to jump in and say this real quickly. Is the Jared Patterson game, we were all texting during it, mind blown and just shocked, but not taking away from him, because he 100% deserves this award. And I think he should have. What was the percentage he had, Blake?
It was 43.5%.
It should have been so much higher. I think it should have. But just imagine what Devontae Smith could have done in a second half of that game.
Yep.
So there you go, right there. All right, guys. Next up, we got Game of the Year. We have someone introducing this category. I apologize for the audio on it. Audio is kind of bad. I did my best. So for those headphone users out there, I tried to put the volume down as low as possible. It shouldn't be too bad, but just an advanced warning, the audio might not be the absolute best.
What's going on, guys? My name is Andrew Coster. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a Clemson University grad. Go Tigers. And I'm here today to present the best game from the 2020 college football season. And the nominees are...
I think it's me, right? Josh is the one I can't even remember. All right, guys, the nominees for game...
What did I do?
That's a great question. The nominees for Game of the Year are Coastal Carolina versus BYU, Notre Dame versus Clemson, Oklahoma versus Texas, Indiana versus Penn State, and LSU versus Florida. And the award for Best Game of the Year, taking home this very prestigious Harris Highlights Awards show is, I don't know how they're going to get this, but they're somehow going to get it. Notre Dame, Clemson, a 2-overtime thriller. Notre Dame, they came out on top with a touchdown victory. They take home the win with 32.2% of the vote. That actually might be the lowest, I think, so far in regards to a win. Oklahoma, Texas, they were in second with 24.4%. Coastal Carolina, BYU, that came in third with 22.7%. Great games, guys, but that Clemson-Notre Dame game, that lived up to the hype. 2 overtimes, back and forth battle. So no complaints on my end, aside from the fact that it ruined my parlay where I had Clemson money line.
Well, I'll jump in here and say this pretty quickly. It's the highest viewed game on USA Network ever, because that was the same night Joe Biden officially won the election. Therefore, they were always saying, well, this game's on NBC, and if it were to shift, we're going to go to USA Network. In the middle of the third quarter, they jumped over to USA Network. And we're there for a while. So this game on USA Network, and a bunch of people on NBC that night watching for election coverage and football. So it was a pretty highly viewed game as well. And one of my favorites of the year.
He declared victory in the second quarter of this game, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they had to switch.
Yeah.
I think that this was likely the best game of the year. just given how good both teams were. And Oklahoma and Texas, I think we all kind of agreed at the time, was like the best, worst football game we've ever seen. Like it was just a comedy of errors the whole game. But this Notre Dame Clemson game was just so good between two teams with great offenses, but also really great defenses. For me, what takes away from this game is how the next game was. So I think, and it shouldn't detract from it because this is its own thing and it was a phenomenal game. But for me, I can't help thinking about what happened the next time these two teams played, which again, I thought Notre Dame, the ball wasn't bouncing their way, which is unfortunate, but I don't know. I'm interested to see how Lyle feels about this.
I mean, I thought it was the best game of the year. For a fan of a team who is notoriously known for losing just about every big game they play. And the same thing happened the final two games they played in, against Clemson and against Alabama. So the one thing you can kind of take away from this season, if you're a Notre Dame fan, is, on pretty much the biggest spotlight, like you talked about, not only was it a game for people to turn on after the election, it was a really good game. And for a season where I kind of felt like there was a lack of really good games, this was the one that stood out. Just the way it went back and forth, the way Notre Dame scored with less than a minute to go, and then they cap it off in overtime. So I mean, it's kind of a fun thing that you can take away from the season. Yeah, I mean, at the end they were outplayed by two teams better than them, but I thought game as a whole, that was the best one I've watched in a long time. As a Notre Dame fan, and I think we talked about it maybe since a few years prior, even as a college football fan, just from having two top 4, top 5 teams play a really close game. It happens less than people think.
And I think it added to it the fact that it was, a nighttime primetime game on NBC with Mike Tirico, where, back in the day, back in the good old days, Notre Dame games, those would be, must-watch TV when they were in the top-ranked teams in the country and they were playing some good opponents. It's not often where Notre Dame's playing like a top 5 team in the country and they're on NBC and it's like that's the game of the week. So I think overall, just like I said, nighttime game, NBC, 2 top 5 teams. I agree. I mean, it was just a great game overall. And looking back at it, although they ruined my parlay, I'll say it again. It was an enjoyable game. It was a fun game because who doesn't like points?
And what Lyle said is, his team is known for losing big games. Well, Lyle, at least your team isn't just known for losing games.
That's true.
In general.
That's true. All right, guys, time to move on now to the Freshman of the Year.
So for this Freshman of the Year category, we've got some great nominees. We have Brandon Joseph from Northwestern. We have Spencer Rattler from Oklahoma. Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina. Kyron Williams from Notre Dame. And Noah Sewell from Oregon. And the winner is, to really not much surprise, Spencer Rattler, quarterback for Oklahoma, with over 3,000 passing yards, had 28 passing touchdowns and 6 rushing touchdowns.
Spencer Rattler, he comes in with 38.2% of the votes. It was close, though. Grayson McCall, guys, came in second with 31.4%. Kyron Williams, he came in third with 15.4%. Had this award ended after the first month of the season, Spencer Rattler would have been nowhere near this award. But the last 2 months he had, I mean, he was absolutely fantastic, lived up to expectations. He was great for Oklahoma. So congratulations, Spencer Rattler. Freshman of the Year, he's likely going to be a Heisman frontrunner next year. But yeah, what a second half he had, because after it was a few games, but I think there was one point, I forget who they were playing, where he was, I think taken out with injury.
It was Iowa State. I think State.
People were talking about that he was like benched because he threw a few interceptions. Again, I think he was injured or something, but he looked bad early on, but he really turned things around to close out the season.
Yeah, and I mean, there's what is it? The Texas game that I'm thinking of? Maybe it was Kansas State. I don't remember which game it was, but you look back and the guy throws for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. And I've said this 100 times during the college football season, was throwing for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. Not often does a freshman quarterback who puts up those numbers look like an inexperienced freshman, and he did. And he didn't, at least to me, he didn't look great. He had the flashy stats, but he didn't look great. And then the rest of the season, he kind of flipped that around, and then the production matched the performance on the field. Like the statistical production matched the way that he performed in each game. And I think that not only was he deserving of the award, I also think he's like the biggest name on this list, especially considering his hype going into next season.
That's probably another reason why he took, a lot of people were saying Grayson McCall should have won because Grayson McCall came out of nowhere, especially for Coastal Carolina. So, again, if you're upset Grayson McCall didn't win, that's why you got to vote a couple hundred times a day to make sure he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for Rattler, I mean, it's easy to kind of play Monday morning quarterback with a guy that has barely any experience at that. And we talked about it early in the year. Sure, he struggled, and it's easy to look at somebody like Trevor Lawrence, who when he came in as a freshman, he just clicked right away. But you know what? That's a once-in-a-generation type of talent. Like for Rattler, he looked like a freshman at the start of the year. Yeah, he struggled a little bit. He had his ups and downs, and then as the season progressed, he did exactly what people thought he would do.
All right, guys, this next one's going to be a fun one. We got Coach of the Year. I'm excited to see how the results look for this one. So I believe you're next, so take this one away.
Okay, for Coach of the Year, nominees are Tom Allen from Indiana, Jeremy Chadwell from Coastal Carolina, Brent Brennan from San Jose State, Matt Campbell from Iowa State, Luke Fickell from Cincinnati, Kalani Sitake from BYU, and Hugh Freeze from Liberty. And the winner for Coach of the Year goes to Jeremy Chadwell from Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, so Jamie Chadwell takes home this award. Sorry, Brady. But Jamie Chadwell did a great job at Coastal Carolina. If the results were anything, we saw a few minutes ago when we did the most surprising team, an overwhelming amount of vote for Coastal Carolina is the most surprising team. So as expected, Jamie Chadwell comes in with 33.2% of the vote. So it wasn't as much of a runaway as Coastal Carolina was. Brady, just so you know, what we got here, 21.3%. They know the right answer, and that was actually the second most amount of votes.
Good.
So Tom Allen, he comes in second place, but Jamie Chadwell, again, they were predicted to finish last. So he did a great job. And I know everyone's saying, where's Nick Saban, where's Ryan Day? The four of us could team up and we can coach at Alabama or Ohio State, and we would lead that team to a conference championship. That's why they're not on this list. These are coaches that, didn't have any expectations with their team, and they led them to the promised land. So that's why these guys aren't on the list, because we already know that Nick Saban, Ryan Day, Dabo Swinney, those are the 3-4 best coaches in all college football. These are ones that led their team to where no one else expected them to.
Yeah, and I think that this is something that you see in other sports, not college football. Like this past year, Dave Roberts leads the Dodgers to their first World Series in 32 years or whatever it is.
And he wasn't a finalist for Manager of the Year.
Not a finalist for Manager of the Year. And it's the same thing. You see a lot of things like that in the NBA too, and then in the NFL. But in college football, you've got guys like Mario Cristobal on there. We know Mario Cristobal is a good coach, but his team finished 4-3. Nick Saban's a good coach. He's the best coach in college football, but that was expected. Of course, Dabo is going to be on there. They were good. Of course, Brian Kelly's going to be on there. They were good. Of course, Ryan Day, even though they only played 7 games or whatever it was. Sorry, Dan Mullen. But honestly, I think these nominees and how close it was is probably a better sign, especially for our voters, than the actual Coach of the Year award was.
Yeah, and again, I think this goes back to the most surprising team of the year correlation here too, where I think it could have easily gone to Tom Allen, and we've talked about on this show that he's awesome, but just the fact that Coastal Carolina had literally no expectations in any way whatsoever coming into the year, and then flip that to what they did in a full season is pretty remarkable. So credit to Jamie Chadwell for doing what he did. Also, I think I might have read Jeremy when I did the nominees, so that's my bad.
Not only did Coastal Carolina have no expectations, they had negative expectations. Like they're going to finish last, just write them off. Who cares? So like I said earlier, for the most surprising team, I'm giving props where credit is due. Is what Coastal Carolina did this year is one of the coolest things we've seen in college football in a long time.
Yeah, so again, what all these coaches did, you could make the case for any of them. Hugh Freeze didn't coach from his hospital bed, but he lived a fantastic season. Matt Campbell, Brett Brennan at San Jose State. They were, I think, 0-12 2 years ago, and he had them nearly undefeated. So overall, some really good nominees. Guys, time to move now to the Offense of the Year. So Josh, tell us about some of the best offenses in college football this year.
Oh, I will. There were a lot of good ones that scored a lot of points. But some offenses scored a lot more points than others offenses did. So, and these are those teams. Our Offense of the Year nominees are BYU, Alabama, North Carolina, Ole Miss, UCF, and look at Kent State cracking the list. 606 yards of offense per game for Kent State. How about that? This one, I don't know if it's too much of a surprise. The winner of the offense of the year is Alabama, 541.6 yards per game on average, and led the nation, or was second in the nation behind Kent State with 48.5 points per game on average. And since Steve Sarkisian is too busy posing for pictures with Bevo in Texas, I'm going to accept this award on his behalf. I also had the top offense in the nation as an offensive coordinator 4 years in a row in NCAA football 14. So I think I'm just as deserving as Steve Sarkisian and Nick Saban. So thanks, guys. I will accept this on their behalf.
Yeah, Bama, they win with a very, very nice 69% of the vote. Coming in second place, guys, was, those golden flashes of Kent State receiving 11.1% of the vote. Guys, Kent State, I think they only played in 3 or 4 games. That's why their numbers were so skewed. But still, a small sample, but a great sample because they were averaging over 600 yards and 50 points a game. But overall, some really good offenses this year. I like that Ole Miss made the list out here, averaging 555 yards a game while allowing 655 yards a game. But Alabama, what an offense! And another win for them. I think it was their 5th or 6th that they've won so far.
No,
so
it's like the real awards. Yeah. These are the better awards already, though. So
right. So Alabama, they come in with the offense of the year. Guys, moving on now to defense of the year. But we do have our final guest of the evening to help us out with this award.
Harris Highlights Show, thank you for having me on for your 5th annual award show. My name is Garrett Otto. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. My favorite team is, of course, the Arizona State Sun Devils, the future 2021-22 Pac-12 champions. And the next category on the award show is the Defense of the Year.
I like the from his car.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do sometimes. You got to do what you got to do. All right, Josh, Josh is going with defense. So, all right, I'm going to go with defense right now. And boys, I'm going to say this is the closest race of the night. This is the closest race of the night. So, guys, for best defense of the year, the nominees are Army, who averaged 275 yards allowed and 14.8 points allowed. Marshall, who allowed 279 yards and 13 points a game. BYU, who allowed 317 yards and 15 points a game. West Virginia, who allowed 291 yards and 20 points a game, doing something that no one could have imagined in the Big 12, and that's play defense. Northwestern allowed 341 yards per game and 15 points per game. Cincinnati, 324 yards and 16.8 points allowed per game. And finally, Notre Dame, who allowed 343 yards per game with 19.7 points allowed. Guys, again, this one is the closest one. The winner had 21.7% of the vote. So just about 1/5 of the vote, 21.7. So the award for best defense of the year, taking home this beautiful, prestigious Harris Highlights Award Show trophy, is Northwestern. The Northwestern Wildcats, who made Justin Fields look like a 5th-round quarterback out there, made most teams look pretty bad out there. Northwestern, they come in with 21.7%. Cincinnati, they came in second place with 20.4%.
Wow.
So they lost by just 1%. Then in third place was Marshall with 18% of the vote. Then next we had Notre Dame with 14.4%. Army with 13.7%. So this was a close one. You can make the case again for all these teams on here. Just a matter of what you value most in defense. Do you value eye test? Do you value points per game? Do you value yards per game? And it looks like maybe it was the eye test with Northwestern, or what they did against Ohio State, what they did against most teams. But yeah, a 1% win for Northwestern.
They were impressive this year, and I think it just goes to show how good some of these teams were with that 1% win. But they had Brandon Joseph, a true freshman, and he led the nation with 9 interceptions or whatever it was. I mean, he was fantastic. Just a bunch of fighting Reese Davises out there.
Fighting Peter Warrens.
Fighting Peter Warrens, our good friend Big Pete. Kind of like what Blake said, though, real quick, I just want to give a shout out to West Virginia. I mean, we on the show, mostly Lyle, have talked about how bad the defenses are in the Big 12, which is true. But I would draft someone maybe. I don't know if Lyle would.
He did.
But West Virginia's, they did too. West Virginia's defense this year was so good, and they were like number one in the country for a really long time. And we had talked about it a couple times. In December, the first weekend of December, they gave up 42 points in a loss to Iowa State. That's the one outlier all season for this team, and that's the reason why their points per game rose to 20 and a half points. So I think it's justified with Northwestern. I'm not trying to take that away from them, but I just think that's what's impressive with West Virginia. That's, I think, the most surprising on this list was a team like West Virginia from the Big 12, and the 20 and a half points allowed per game rose in their final 2 games of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, you can't go wrong with any of these ones, but I'm glad we had a really close one that was decided by 1%. I was hoping on here for someone to win by 1 or 2 votes, so that it truly would have come down to the final seconds. But Northwestern, what a great defense! Again, what they made Justin Fields look like in that Big Ten championship game was unbelievable. All right, guys, we have 2 more categories left. The first one we got here is Offensive Player of the Year.
Well, I am cycled through apparently, and I'm going to be the one doing Offensive Player of the Year this year, which is pretty fun. So the Offensive Player of the Year nominees are Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts from Florida, Breece Hall, Zach Wilson, Devontae Smith, Sweet Trevor Lawrence, Jarrett Patterson, Justin Fields, Najee Harris, and Mac Jones. And the winner...
Before we get to the winner, though, we do have some super chats to get to build some suspense. Our man Connor, a special award should be given to EA Sports for announcing that they will be bringing back their college football video game without official teams and players. That's something that in our next show next week we're going to be diving into. We're going to be talking about some NCAA football and how awesome that's going to be, as Josh said earlier.
There are official teams, by the way. They're having at least 100.
He can now beat me by 70 with some 2021 rosters. So there's also that. And we also got our man Steven Smith, as always, coming in here. Big 12 is turning the corner on the defensive end of the game, and that's true. It wasn't just North or West Virginia. A lot of Big 12 teams this year looked really good defensively, Iowa State being one of them. Oklahoma looked pretty good as well defensively too. So is the Big 12 going to turn into the best defensive conference in college football? No, but they're not going to be the worst, it looks like, moving on. So Brady, back to the Drummel right here.
Well, thank you, Blake. I really do appreciate that. And all of our viewers and people who contribute to the show. Thank you.
We love money.
Much. We love money. I love life. Have you ever been to the mountains, Blake? It's a great time. I love my bike. And the winner of the offensive player, the Bill Walton Offensive Player of the Year award, is Devontae Smith, the wide receiver from Alabama.
As expected. I mean, when you win the Heisman Trophy, if you do it on offense, you're likely going to win. But guys, he got 90% of the vote for wide receiver. He only received 69% of the vote for best offensive player. I did think it was going to be a little closer in regards to some of the other players on this category. Coming in second place, it's tough to see here, was actually Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson actually came in second place for offensive player of the year, but granted, it was 5.3% of the vote. Third place, this one's interesting, guys, Justin Fields. 4.7% of the votes in regards to offensive player of the year. Then the rest were very minimal. But again, all these guys you couldn't go wrong with. But I think the fact that he won the Heisman Trophy, that might add a little to it, I think, in regards to voting.
Is it just a little bit?
A tad.
A wee bit.
But the fact that it was a narrower voting margin than the wide receiver one is definitely a good sign.
But it is interesting to see, though, that, Zach Wilson came in at number 2, and then, again, Justin Fields at number 3. I find that one shocking, over, like, Trevor Lawrence, over, Jared Patterson, Najee Harris, Kyle Trask. Kyle Trask has been, I guess it's recency bias, but Kyle Trask, for quarterback, for offensive player of the year, he received no love whatsoever. Kyle Trask actually received the second least amount of votes for this category. This is a guy that was putting up Joe Burrow numbers for most of the season, and then those last season losses turned him at the end. But guys, final category, we got Defensive Player of the Year.
Okay, Defensive Player of the Year nominees. 4 of these 5 guys have already picked up an award tonight. Who's going to get a second? The nominees are Zaven Collins from Tulsa, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from Notre Dame, Patrick Surtain from Alabama, Taron Jackson from Coastal Carolina, and Christian Barmore from Alabama. And the winner for Defensive Player of the Year goes to Patrick Surtain from Alabama.
Wow.
I was hoping for this one. It would have been like Jeremiah. I can't even speak. Jeremiah. Owusu
Koromoa.
That's too tough for me, Lyle. You know that.
Jeremiah
Koromoa. It's not that hard, Blake.
Blake can barely pronounce Mac Jones, so this is good. This is a step forward.
Hey, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah picks off DJ Uiagalelei and returns it for a touchdown. Yeah.
I would not know what to do. I was hoping he would have somehow
Blake
won.
goes, the offense throws the ball to the defense.
I was hoping he would have somehow won Defensive Player of the Year after not winning Linebacker of the Year, just to have some weirdness in the award. Just like in years in baseball when players receive like more votes for MVP than they do Cy Young. There's just a bunch of craziness. Surtain comes in with 35.3% of the vote. Zaven Collins, he was close, though. He got 33%, so this was decided by 2.5%. My main man, Jeremiah, he came in with 20.6%. So again, all these guys won awards earlier in the evening. Can't go wrong here. It was a close finish. I mean, a lot of people, it's preference in regards to what do you think is most importantly in regards to defense. Do you not throw the ball, his way? Do you have a guy that, like Zaven Collins, who was all over the place, had 2 game winners? Ultimately, Bama yet again shows why they are, as Nick Saban said in his recruiting process, the place to go. Don't disrespect when you said don't go to Bama because you're not going to start, when you're admitting Alabama's the better team in regards to the 2.
Yeah,
agreed. I don't know. I thought that was a cool thing that he pitched on Twitter. I mean, it was cool to see him talk to a recruit. I thought
it was awesome.
A lot of people are upset about that. I have it pulled up. I actually just closed the window a couple minutes ago. A lot of former Bama recruits or players were upset about it. So I don't know. I was never recruited by Alabama, so I wouldn't know how to feel.
I was.
Oh, he was recruited at left bench. And left end.
Yeah, left out.
Oh, left out, yes.
All right, guys. So that wraps up the awards portion of the show. So now it's time.
This is my favorite part.
At the end of voting, we had an essay category where essentially you could submit a short essay and about anything you want. It could be your thesis, could be about your life mission. But instead, we asked you to pretty much share with us your favorite moments. We asked you to share with us things you'd like to see on the show. So I'm going to read some of those off. We're going to rattle these off. You guys can share your guys' thoughts. Someone says we'd like to see some mock draft videos. Do a video where you each pick an order about a first round. I think we did that last year. We did some mock draft videos. So if you guys want to see some mock drafts coming, in the coming weeks, coming months, leading up to the NFL draft, we're going to be talking about that, doing some mock drafts. Segment idea, highlight several players from smaller schools that deserve more hype. Bring fans on to discuss their favorite team, have some trivia, some team history, or some player history. Maybe do a tournament over the college football playoff on NCAA. Draw names out of a hat to see who plays with who and which teams will make the playoffs. Gutsiest play call. Someone wants to hear our thoughts on what the gutsiest play call is. Review some of the greatest teams from the past decade. Guys, I mean, there are just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds here. So I think what we can do is I can jot some of these down and we can pick some of our best favorites to talk about in the coming weeks, because with, at least 1,000 in regards to what their favorite segments are on the show, what they like about the show, suggestions they have for the show moving forward, we can include that. We got some coaching profiles, talk about coaches on the hot seat, coaches you like to see fired, coaches you like to see go to other places. So there's a lot, guys. A breakdown of every national championship in college football history.
Starting with the first one.
No.
Have the actual players accept the awards. That's what someone wants to see moving forward.
Yep, we'll work on that. I'm on it, Blake. It's a callback joke to the monologue. I'm on it.
People want to see us talking about recruiting. People want to see a bunch of draft stuff. So, yeah, I'm going to go through next week and read some of these. But, guys, our 5th annual Harris Highlights Award Show, it's in the books. Unfortunately, the first time we couldn't be in studio. We couldn't be all together, but we still dressed to impress. We made it through the show.
Lyle dressed up this year.
He dressed up last year, I think.
I was going to say, what year did I not dress up? I don't
know. I thought you wore like a polo one year. I don't know.
Maybe the first year. I know, since we've been on camera, I got the suit and tie.
Wait,
what?
Josh, are you laughing at the same thing?
I've been texting him for 20 minutes.
What?
So Lyle looked out at the.
I'm pulling it up because I can.
So
okay.
Look who said it.
Oh.
So for those who don't know, that's our former ASU softball sports information director, Mark Jezik, who on Twitter called me out for not refrigerating my my fancy Martinelli's sparkling cider. So I had to put an ice cube in it when we started the show. He was not happy. But yeah, Hulu has live sports, and we'll talk about this another day. He says that the Pac-12 should just partner with Hulu. Why not?
It might be better than the Pac-12 network.
I think
Larry
so too.
Scott is out. Larry Scott is out.
I do want to read this one because there's also a category that has share with us your favorite moments, and this was just the one that was at the very bottom when I saw it for the first one. My favorite moment in show history was when everyone was making fun of Lyle in the chat because his map was so bad for the conference realignment. LMAO, sorry, Lyle. Keep it up. I'm assuming that's when he probably had, Eastern Washington in his Pac-12?
I don't know. I was trying to make it exciting.
I mean, what's worse, Lyle putting Eastern Washington and Hawaii in the Pac-12, or Blake putting some Big Ten schools in the wrong states?
That he did.
Hey, man. I could not tell you where half the states are on a map. I couldn't tell you. It's tough. I guarantee it's pretty tough.
It's not at all.
I think it's pretty tough.
Can you name all 50 state capitals, Blake?
Oh, state capitals? No chance.
Can you do California? Can you do the two states you've lived in most recently, California and Arizona?
Sacramento and Phoenix.
What's the capital of Florida, Blake?
That is Tallahassee, I believe.
Is it pronounced Louisville or Louisville?
No, because it's not a state capital, but I go Louisville.
What's the capital of Kentucky?
Nope.
That's a great question. I don't know. Hey, man, I learned this back in 5th grade.
Frankfurt.
I didn't do this back in 5th grade. Do you guys know how long ago I was in 5th grade?
Like 34 years ago.
Did they even have books back then?
we had books, but the internet
had 42 states back then.
I think so. I just know the internet didn't exist back then. So, guys, that wraps up this fun edition of the Harris Highlight Show. We're gonna be back next week talking about NCAA football returning. We haven't even talked about Mr. Larry Scott being gone as Pac-12 commissioner, so we can share our thoughts on that. There's going to be transfer news. I'm sure there's going to be coaching news. There's going to be a lot of college football news. So next Tuesday night, we're going to be back to normal scheduling, a bunch of fun stuff, and I'm going to go through, find all the fun things. Maybe instead of a Q&A, we can read all this stuff. We need Are You Smarter Than a Fifth? I'll tell you this, guys. I can confirm this. My 5th grade teacher actually was on Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader, and she confirmed back then that is not the stuff they're teaching 5th graders, and no way. Also, by the way, the kids on that show, those aren't actually they might actually be 5th graders, but they're given information. They don't actually know that stuff. No way.
So there was an episode. So I vividly remember this because I decided in my head just this one day that show was fake. You guys remember Madison Pettis?
Yeah.
He was in Disney Channel shows and stuff. So when she first came out on Disney Channel, her first show on Disney Channel, I just happened to be watching Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? And she was one of the 5th graders. And I was like, whoa, she's an actress. Don't tell me, don't show me that that's normal.
No.
So fraud.
So one of our next
The
trivia
Bachelor
shows,
is real though.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
But one of our next trivia shows, it shouldn't be college football trivia. It should just be trivia.
I'm down. I'm here for that.
Our own Jeopardy or something.
Yes.
Yeah. The other day I was watching Jeopardy with MJ, and I was like, if I go on Jeopardy, I'm definitely coming in last, but I'm definitely having some money. She's like, all right, sounds good. This next round, let's see how much you can guess. And I think I got 2 right. It should have been 4, but I think what was it?
You
said Logan.
Oh,
he's using a lifeline.
Oh yeah,
it's a different show, Blake.
No.
You know what's funny? You know what's funny about Jeopardy though? I watched what?
I was gonna say I played Jeopardy with your parents. It's the most miserable thing I've ever done. I watch Jeopardy all the time.
Well, I was gonna say I watch most nights because my dad loves to watch, and I kid you not, my dad rattles off every single answer right.
Yes.
I don't get how he does it.
I vividly remember we were in Washington a few years back. I walked out of the den or whatever up front. I went to the living room and your parents were watching Jeopardy. I'm like, oh, I love Jeopardy. Your dad's like, oh, me too. And it was like Picasso, 6,444, and then Einstein. I was like, all right, see you later. Have a good night.
Yeah, so he rattles all these off, but they had a category the other night that was sports broadcasters quotes, and I thought that was pretty cool.
How many did you get?
Well, so that was the last category, and they didn't finish 2 of the questions because I was gonna say, and I was bummed because I wanted to see what the other ones were. I'm sure the $200 question was just Al Michaels. Do you believe in miracles?
Yeah.
But yeah, the other ones I got, there was a Dickie V one on there, and there was.
Or it's just like Mike Breen, bang.
Actually, I don't know if that was one. That might have been one.
I don't know.
I can't remember.
Yeah,
That was kind of cool.
The other night, the daily double question was about the Heisman, and I was like, yes, I would have doubled my money. Because I say, if you're getting the daily double, if you're not risking it all, get off the show.
If you're in a position to win.
Nope. You risk it all no matter what.
It's like James Holzhauer. Like that guy wanted a ridiculous rate because he was not afraid to just go all in with all of his money.
And he played the board. He went higher numbers first, so he got more to daily double.
And 8 minutes into the game, he was ahead by $30,000 against the rest of the contestants. I don't know how that guy ever lost.
Sticking on that, just to wrap it up, there was this one guy the other day we were watching. He legit was up by like $12,000. He had like 19,000, and the person in second had 7,000. He got a daily double, and he made it a true daily double with a $12,000 lead. And he ended up hitting it because he ended up guessing, and he got it right. So then he ended up running away with the award. Guys, we need to get on Jeopardy somehow. I know that's only 3 spots, but we can. I'll just host. I'll take 10.
Why don't we just go on Family Feud?
Oh my god!
Well, yeah.
Is it 5 on Family Feud? I think it's 5.
We'll bring Jay. We'll bring Jay.
He's the ringer. He's the ringer.
He'll help us guide us. But guys, as always, every show gets out of hand. So as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Follow us on Twitter at the HH Show _. Hit us all up on Twitter. Do whatever you guys want. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. Drink your guys' drinks. This has been a fun one. For Josh Schaefer, Lyle Goldstein, Brady Klain, this has been Blake Harris from the Chateau in beautiful Monrovia, California. Thank you to everyone who voted, the millions of you that voted. This was a lot of fun. And we're going to see you guys right back here again next